What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Raw Stocks. This is Rustic. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Tesla's chart. We're going to look at where price came from, where price ended today, and where price is likely to head tomorrow and into the rest of the week. We got a whopper of a day on Tesla, huge gap open, didn't even attempt to rally down to fill that gap. And now we are sitting above some major key levels. So we're going to go ahead and discuss that. We talked about some levels yesterday, if we got above or if we rejected at, where that would likely send price. And with the gap open, we straight up cleared quite a few of those specific targets that we were looking at, took some things off the board. You can see that mitigation block is no longer there that we talked about yesterday. We still have that fair value gap. We got a new breaker block that we're going to be looking at here in a second. But let's go ahead and jump into the charts. Before we get started, don't forget to check out the link in the description below, a link to the Raw Stocks Trading Discord, a way to upgrade a premium, and a link to attempt a futures funded trading combine if you're interested in trading futures. If we're looking at the chart, again, we got this fair value gap that we gapped into and we stayed inside of today. So the reason that this is important is that we did not close it. We wicked up to the very top, just a little bit over, and we managed to stay inside of that fair value gap. It's a very large fair value gap. Also inside of that fair value gap, we have a breaker block right here. And you can see we've traded into that breaker block. We closed right at the mean threshold or the consequent encroachment of that breaker block. And that came from a previous change of character, right? Inside that fair value gap where we know there's liquidity. The key thing is that we gapped over the 50 period moving average and we're well above the 200 period moving average. And that gave us a new change of character that occurred here. Although within a gap, it gives us a new block, right? And that's going to be a breaker block. So if we expect price to come back down, which you can see right now, the RSI is pointing up, and this certainly could just run up. We got a level at 205.41. We got a level at 206.89. That's previous buy-side liquidity in the tops from some previous day candles. Also the full gap fill, which we did not fully fill the gap the last time we were up here. So that's what those two levels represent. But we got to get through this breaker block and we got to get through this fair value gap, right? But if we were to cycle back down, where would we likely go? Okay, so we have a couple different things going on as far as potential targets. Let's talk about the downside potential first, right? Because this has just been a phenomenal rally. The chance that we, just straight up keep ripping is a little bit low, but it could be squeezing all the shorts, could be catching some FOMO. So it's not off the table that we head up, but let's look at the downside because it's probably more likely that we do see some kind of correction before we keep going up. So if we were to come down, potentially what we're looking for is to run a retest of the 50 period, right? I wouldn't expect to drop all the way down to the 20 period just yet, but I could see us coming down here, right, down to like the 180, 181 area, maybe even a little bit deeper down to 179, somewhere inside this breaker block, right, which would see, if it happened over maybe the next 2 or 3 days, it would see this 50 period start to curl up, right? So we'd say maybe like by Friday, we might see us back down there. If we get that 50 period to start curling up, that could be enough to send it all the way back up to like that 207 level, right? So that's definitely one potential target. Now, if we came down and we dropped that 50 period and we ran a test on the 20 that's starting to push up, we could see price come all the way back down to 170. Now, we have this breaker block here, and if that holds us, that could be the support that we need to push higher. But if we break that breaker block and we invalidate it, 177.52 give or take, and we close a daily candle below that, then we're starting to look down to these other blocks, right? And then we have the gap fill down here. So if things were to just completely fall out, that breaker block gives up, we got a previous level that we were watching around the 170 to 171, and then we have the push down to 157 gap fill all the way down to 147.35. Okay, now let's take that off the table and just say if today was the top, right, we also could use our Fibonacci tool to anticipate where we might head back down to, right? If we were to come back down to the 50%, which is just the equilibrium of this move, that puts us in at 169. That's right around that 170 area that we're talking about down here. also would be filling the gap from today's open. We also have the 618 or the 62%, whatever you like to watch, around 161.81. And then we have our optimal trade entry coming in at 156.58. Now that'd be obviously quite a drop from where we are now. That'd be pretty aggressive, but certainly could happen. Would love to see it come back down, cycle back down somewhere inside this gap, kind of like what we did here when we pushed up and didn't fill the gap. Maybe we could push down, grab a gap fill or at least a partial gap fill and then run it back up. That'd be awesome. If we did that, it'd be a great entry for a lot of people who are looking to load shares and go long. But I don't think that we're coming all the way back down there. I think we'll be lucky to get the equilibrium or the 50% of that move, if this is even the bottom, right? So we can't anticipate, or the top, sorry. We can't anticipate that this is the top. We can't say that for sure because we haven't had any kind of clue that it is the top. Right now, we're just inside that fair value gap. Now, if we were to look at the upside potential, right, we could just keep this RSI rocket going. And where would we head, right? If we closed out this fair value gap entirely, we're likely to see a rejection off of these levels right here. You see a lot of previous rejections there, and it may just be a one day pop back down and then start to head higher. Now let's take a look at where higher is. We have all kinds of fair value gaps here. All kinds of fair value gaps as we cascaded down back in January. But I'd say this is a pretty good look at 228.32. And if we were to go back and look, we got that order block up here too, all the way up at 250. But if we were to go back and look at the entire move, right, this entire leg down, and we looked at the Fibonacci levels for retracement, what we could do is we could say that right now we're pushing on equilibrium at 202.15, right? And if we can get above that, we start to get into premium price, which would actually be discount if you're looking to go short. But it's premium price of this range, right? Back up near a top. And so we could push all the way up to 217, all the way up to 228, right? And again, 228 is right here where there was a former breaker block. And we could see price push there and find rejection somewhere in there. And we could see price obviously go back and forth and try to go all the way up and attack this order block. We've seen it a lot in the past. If you look back on some of our tops of our waves, like after this move down and back up, when we pop back up, we pop to an order block. Same thing here. When we drop down and pop back up, we pop to an order block, right? And so when we were making this move up, I was anticipating we were going to make a move back up to this order block, and obviously we fell off from there. But we could definitely see a nice rally, although it's not going to probably happen all at once, but a nice rally back up to 253. Let's drop down in some lower time frames. I'm going to take these fib levels off just so we have a better look at the chart. I'm also going to take the fair value gap and breakers off of the daily chart. We'll take a look at the 1 hour. Okay, here we got the 1 hour. Let's take our silver bullet off there. So this is coming back off of earnings, right? We saw that pop. We've seen some sideways action. We saw a pop. Saw some more sideways action, right? Now this is Monday the 29th, which is today. We see that gap open, right? And we see it run up, come back down, push back up inside a fair value gap right now. As in after hours, we started to see that 20 period catching up. We got that 50 period going. So right now on the 1 hour time frame, we're still in a bull trend, right? Our RSI is up. It capped out over 70. We saw a little bit of RSI divergence here. Now we've seen it cooling off as after hours traded sideways. But we're still inside that fair value gap. We did not drop significantly, right? The only drop we got is, just kind of right out of the gate this morning. We saw that a little bit of push down. There's a little fair value gap here. Then we saw price pop up and consolidate. So if we were to give up the 20 period on the 1 hour chart, that would be a different story. But right now, what we see is a bullish trend. And so, if you want to play it safe, you ride the trend until the trend isn't working anymore. But right now it's trending up for the 1 hour. It looks like we're going to run into this order block up at 203.60. So you'd be pretty safe if you could grab some kind of pullback if there was any pullback this week. to grab it and try to go long, 1, 2 weeks out for a 205 call. Let's drop down into the 15-minute chart. 15-minute chart, we do see again that consolidation, right? We haven't seen any, it's just kind of green, little drop, all green, 15-minute candles. And then kind of into the end of the day, we saw that consolidation. We're right on the 20 period. The 50 period is caught up. RSI is right around 50. And so again, same thing, same target, right? On the 15-minute chart, we also have order blocks that we're probably looking to push up on. And so again, same thing. Maybe this week, maybe next week contracts, you could look to go 205 calls. You want to wait for a little pullback. If we got to 185, that would probably be your pullback. I wouldn't say we're probably going any deeper than 173.38, where there's a fair value gap, but we'll have to see what structure starts to say. If structure starts to look like this is going to turn into, something like a Head and Shoulders, right, then we could anticipate that price might come back down all the way down to maybe 167. But I would be looking at this fair value gap right here that goes down all the way to 169. And we could see maybe something that looked a little more like a Head and Shoulders end up playing out. But right now, that hasn't happened. And so we'll be watching to see how price develops into tomorrow and see if we continue to push up towards these order blocks. 15-minute chart, we got lots of order blocks. They're small, but again, we have that same one around that 203 area. We have a couple more, and then we have, these are our levels. So we have those two levels, and then we have another one a little bit higher at 211, 212. So if we cleared one and we cleared these levels, we would be looking to push up to as much as 211, 212. Last, we'll look at the 1-minute chart to see if there was any good entries today. I did not trade Tesla. The only thing I did was close a Tesla runner, and that was from last week. Ended up closing it for over 700% on that runner. I know the call outs that we did, we closed like 150%, something like that. So it would have been cool to hold all of them and see what that profit would have looked like. But held that runner over the weekend, ended up paying out again over 700%. I think it's like over $1,000 on a single contract, which was pretty sweet that we called that out live in the Discord rooms for the premium members. So if we take a look at today's price action here on Monday, let's pop up our silver bullet time macro. So you can see on the silver bullet, we were trading down into the opening of the session, right? And so you could have definitely tried to catch this initial move as we made a run back up on the kind of New York AM pre-market, some pre-market levels. There's a fair value gap in there, right? You could have tried to go long in that fair value gap, and you can see here if we use our rectangle tool. Right, we get our little fair value gap there. We get one candle that kind of wicks down to it. You could take your long there, target a previous high. We did not quite get there. We came down, might have gotten stopped on that trade, maybe not, depending on where you set your stop. Ultimately, we end up running back up on it later. Also, if you're just waiting for some other signals, like if you're waiting for a change of character to occur, you see we get a bullish change of character here, right? And you see that we don't come down and take that new low. There's a fair value gap inside of here. Let's take a look at it. So you get that move, you get the change of character, you draw back down to the fair value gap, stops down below the previous low, doesn't end up getting stopped out, rode it up. You could have ridden it up for a really nice profit in that event. So nice smart money trade there as well. And then you start to get more evidence of fair value gaps, right? As we start to see some breaking out, some structural shifts, right? If you're also somebody who, we learned this over the weekend in the live book study on the Discord, but if you're looking to trade like a breaker block situation, we get a breaker block here on the break of structure, okay? And then we see price come back down towards that breaker block. You can try to take your entry somewhere around there. Again, ends up rallying up. Nice move throughout the day, right? Kind of tops out during the lunch session, and then the PM session just kind of consolidates. So either way, there's some really nice trades on Tesla today. If you didn't ride something over the weekend, could have taken a nice trade to the upside. Obviously, a lot of bullish momentum right now on Tesla. A lot to be excited about, but hopefully people don't get caught holding the bag. I know Tesla is notorious for, pushing up and then pulling the rug. So just be careful. Again, we know what our targets are. If we go back to the daily time frame, take a look at that one more time. We got targets at 205, 41, 206, 89. Higher targets maybe to 217, 218. We got 211, 228, 32. Just if price keeps running to the downside, maybe a retest of the 50 period at 175, maybe a retest of a previous level at 178.75. We already came back down and tested this wick high here, and we rejected that. So if we did push down on that level one more time, I'd expect it to give out. So you got your levels, trade accordingly. Good luck on tomorrow's session, and we'll see you guys in the live trading rooms on the Discord.